I built this adorable little villa in Minecraft, but this time Pinterest wasn't my source of inspiration. Following the release of the Tiny Glade demo, I thought it would be really fun to try and loosely recreate this house I made in Tiny Glade. Now, the builds don't look identical as it's not always easy to recreate something in Minecraft, but it's very heavily influenced and I've tried to stay true to the reference image where I could. Let's jump into the speed build. So to create this build, I went in with a yellow concrete and I sort of mapped out the layout of the house. It's actually a little bit smaller than I would have liked, but we can still work with it. I also wanted to go initially for a kind of like beigey, tired looking block to sort of match the one in Tiny Glade, and unfortunately I couldn't actually see anything like that in Minecraft, but the yellow looks really nice. I think can imagine it being sort of like in the south of France or in Italy, somewhere like that, so it actually worked out quite well. I used a mix of brick slabs and brick stairs for the roofs, and the roofs are actually surprisingly easy to do. I normally really struggle with making the sort of rounded shapes on Minecraft, but I think the sort of tower portion of the building, the roof on that turned out quite nice. The larger sort of rectangle, I guess, main part of the house was really easy anyway. Like I said, it was just a mix of slabs and stairs, so nothing too fancy there. But what I really liked is that the brick colour is kind of true to the colour of the roofs on Tiny Glade, and it also has such a nice contrast against the yellow. To get that steep roof look, I kept building my bricks up and just sort of playing around with the design. I do actually go in at the very end and make a few very minor changes, which I don't think I actually have included in this video, but you'll see what it looks like anyway. It's nothing too drastic. After I was happy with the roof, I went in and started adding some sort of like detail blocks to the walls of the house. Now I went in with granite initially and it looks horrific. I don't know what possessed me to do that. I do change it in a little bit. I think I change it to yellow wool and it looks so much better. So as you might be able to see on the Tiny Glade photo, I do have a rooftop window on the sort of tower section of this build, and I did start trying to create that in Minecraft, but it would only be for display and I couldn't make it look nice, so I just gave up on that. And instead I headed over to the other side of the house and I started laying down some bushes, trying to follow loosely what I've got in the Tiny Glade build. I start off by making them around the door, and I actually use a mix of acacia and spruce. I know it looks a little bit weird at this point, but spruce leaves are fantastic to add into the bushes just to give some depth and to break up the colour. Following my Tiny Glade reference photo, I now map out the dirt path, and I like to make it look imperfect. I don't like one straight line, so I've tried to make it windy where I can, and you might see from the reference photo that I have got a few paths, so I do incorporate that into the Minecraft build as well. I added some more bushes around the entrance of the house, and then I went in and added some pops of colour through flowers. So I have some hints of blue in there, there's purple and there's white. I really wanted to try and replicate the colours from Tiny Glade, and it just gives such a warm summery feeling, especially mixed with the yellow in the house. It just looks so beautiful. So I did have a bit of a panic at this point because I was looking at my reference photo and I thought, oh my god, something's not matching up. And then I realised that I'd missed out the whole first floor and I hadn't put the windows in. So I do end up working those into the roof instead, which turned out perfect. I think it looks great. But there was definitely a bit of panic to start off with. I had a little play around with the roof shape for these windows, as I always have to. I can never get them perfectly first time, but I tried to change to a green glass pane, and then I changed it back to black, and then I eventually settled on white, but it took me ages to try and find the right colour because I feel like the black and the green were just too sort of garish. They just stuck out too much against the colours that I'd used, and white just looked perfect. I just went around the outside of the house and took out the granite blocks in the wall, and then I changed them to yellow wool instead, which, like I said earlier, looks so much better. The granite blocks stuck out like a sore thumb, so swapping them out with this yellow wool block instead made so much difference. It helped to tone the wall down, but also kept the detail as well. Now jumping in with my all-time favourite part of building is adding the climbing plants, and I will always say that a house or a build does not look finished until you've got plants on the walls and on the roof. You'll see now when I'm swapping out the windows that the white just looks so much more gentle and well fitted, whereas the black looked really, really harsh. As always, I got sidetracked, so I forced myself to finish adding the greenery to the walls. I didn't really add that much to the roof. I add some at the back of the roof later on, but because I had quite a lot on some areas of the walls, I didn't want to overdo it. Now this part was really, really fun. I used 2 different washing line CITs from, I think it's Hananacraft, and I placed them under barrier blocks so it looked like the washing was hanging out of the window to dry. I placed down some shutters from Mizuno CIT catalogue. They do have some really nice ones in Ghoulcraft, but I decided that these ones looked a little bit more rustic, and that's kind of like what my build was leaning towards, so these just felt like a really nice fit. Now, I'm normally a sucker for a heavily designed garden with lots of clutter, but seeing as I'm sticking to my Tiny Glade reference photo as much as I can, I am very, very minimal with what I put in there. So I do deviate from my Tiny Glade build here, and instead of just having a massive grassy area, I decided I wanted to try something that I've done in like an old TikTok, which is where I use moss carpets and make it look like the grass has been mowed a certain way, so it has this sort of darker effect on some parts. I placed down some lantern holders like in the reference image, and then I added some light blocks to give the lanterns like a really nice glow at night. The Tiny Glade home, as you can see from the reference image, is surrounded by like a forest, so I tried to copy that by spawning a mix of spruce and oak trees. I do usually like to add in the retextured pink birch trees that you can see to the left of the build, but I chose to leave them out this time as it didn't really fit the look of the house. After I was happy with the tree placement, I then made a small little path leading to the garden, and I started on a patio area. I actually end up changing that patio area and adding another grass and moss section. Something about the patio just didn't feel right and I hated it, so I changed that up. I will go on to do the interior in a separate video, but we are approaching the end of this build now. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you love the result as much as I do, and see you next time. I've got a gorgeous big baby. He hates me. He hates affection from me. He's gonna walk all over my screen now. Thanks, Elf.